everybody, what's happening? What's going on? Dan Shinder here on Drum Talk TV, live on Facebook, coming to you from Globe, Arizona. Tell us where you're watching from. We have Jason Barnes with us again, first time live, and Jason's coming to us from Atlanta, Georgia, from inside his car. So mobile that he's actually mobile right now. Jason, how are you?
Pretty good, man. How are you doing?
Really good. So nice to talk to you. Like you said, I said to Jason a moment ago, I said, well, it's been a while. He said, yeah, like a few years. I was, wow, this time just really flies. I appreciate you making time out of your busy schedule. And folks, while you tell us where you're watching from, I'm going to pull the show up on my monitor so I can check. You're welcome to ask questions. And, well, as long as they're related to this interview. If you asked about how to make tacos or whatever, I'll have to put Gilbert on, our associate producer in Monterrey, Mexico. But tell us where you're watching from. I'm going to pull this up. And if you're not familiar with Jason's story, we're going to get into that a little bit, but more importantly, also update us with what is going on in his world. Jason is known, a.k.a. as the Cyborg Drummer, because a few years ago, more than a few years ago than we've spoken, he lost his right arm in an industrial electrocution accident. Now imagine being a right-handed human who plays guitar, plays drums, writes with a pen, and losing your arm. So the good folks over at Georgia Tech got together with Jason and made a few different types of prosthesis, including a robotic arm. And I'm going to say this right up front. I don't want to hear any bullshit comments about that's cheating. Okay? Because if you want to take a crack at it, go cut off an arm, wank one of these on, and let's see how you go. Okay? So, Jason, how are you doing, man? What is new?
I'm good, man. Just been trying to stay busy like everyone else, I hope.
Yeah.
Still doing a lot of work with Georgia Tech. We're actually working on a few different prototype prosthetics right now and prototype applications for prosthetics right now, which I'm pretty stoked about. Just pretty much still working hard, trying to get the stuff out there for everyone else.
That's awesome, and it's great that you travel the world as far as, wow, you've been to Russia, you've been all over, really kind of speaking with people about the experience and people in similar situations, right, who have lost limbs, and you kind of inspire people on how to get on with life and don't let that get in the way of dreams coming true, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah. One of the biggest events we did recently was for this event called Thunderdome, and
right.
One of my good buddies named Billy Brimblecom, and he owns a nonprofit foundation called Steps of Faith Foundation. It's to help people with needs get prosthetics and orthotics, etc., who don't have money to afford them.
That's awesome.
So he's actually good friends with Jason Sudeikis, one of the Saturday Night Live stars, et cetera. And so they put on a nonprofit event every year called Thunderdome, where it's kind of like a night of comedy and music, and we just kind of promote everything and show people what we're capable of, make people laugh, make people cry, and try and raise money for a good cause there. So that's one of the most recent things we're working on right now, and yeah, it's completely awesome.
That's awesome. And towards the end of the interview, let's get the information for people to check that out and click through. But before we go further, I want to click over to, I'm just looking at, okay, so our associate producer, Gilbert, is saying that you have low volume on your mic. So if it's possible to turn that up, great. If not, it's okay. People, just listen harder, okay? Listen through the tinnitus. Let's show a clip of Jason playing the drums. And Jason, you won't see or hear this, but sorry, I turned my microphone down on this thing now. Jeez, I've had the worst day of technology today. I can't even begin to tell you. Here's Jason playing the drums. Check this out, and then we'll be right back with more of Jason. Check this out. Dude, you're grooving there. Mal, your playing has changed since we last got together. You've obviously been practicing.
Appreciate that, man. I try when I can.
Yeah, that's cool. It sounds really good. So, if you can give the people who don't know, we have, seriously, if it's been a few years, we have probably 500,000 to 600,000 more fans than when we first got together. So I'm guessing there's probably a few people that haven't heard your story. Give a quick synopsis of A, how you got interested in music, B, getting past the accident that you had, and then we'll talk about some other new stuff you have going on. We'll talk about musical influences and things like that.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So my dad is actually an Australian who's who of rock and roll, which is essentially the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Australia. And so growing up, I was always influenced by my dad in music my whole life. And I started playing guitar at a young age, 10, 11 years old. And I kind of got bored with it very quick. And my parents they're always tired of me beating on the table at dinner all the time, so they got me a drum kit.
I was just going to say, you got bored with guitar because it didn't have any drums on it.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't hit this hard enough. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, my parents got me a drum kit for Christmas one year, and within a few days I was playing like some Eric Clapton and like B.B. King kind of grooves, and that's when I kind of realized like, hey man, I think I'm a drummer. And so yeah, I kind of pursued that. And unfortunately, when I was 22, I was involved in electrical accident work, which ultimately resulted in the amputation of my right hand. And being hospitalized for a little over a month. So, of course, as you can imagine, completely devastating and depressing at the time, but life goes on, So I started working with my prosthetic company on developing my first prosthetic, which actually was one to play drums, not even to get my normal daily activities back.
Right. Just make it so I could play drums but not have to do homework. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, can you open this bottle for me? I'm going to go to bed. I'll make it real quick. Yeah, that was kind of my first approach there, and that was my main goal. And so I started working with them, made my first prosthetic, and then I applied to Atlanta Institute of Music and Media for drums and percussion. And during my time there is when I got hooked up with one of my teachers, Eric Sanders, amazing guy, who hooked me up with one of the professors at Georgia Tech who was involved in music technology. Mm-hmm. Now, basically, I had an idea to develop a more advanced robotic version of my drumming arm, if you will. So, would be able to work the same way as the human hand was. I could flex my muscles that would control my fingers, and it would create strikes on the stick, or loosen or tighten the grip on the stick to create, double strokes, etc. Mm-hmm. And so that was my goal there. So my teacher, Eric Sanders, got me hooked up with Gil Weinberg at Georgia Tech. And that was about 6.5 years ago. And since then, we've been developing prototype prosthetics. And so the first one we made was the two-stick drum arm, which works one of two ways. There's one stick, which is controlled via EMG, which stands for electromyography. And essentially, it's just like a piezo trigger, like a drum trigger, an amplified electrical sensor that goes on my muscle, and when I flex the muscle, it sends an electrical signal to the computer and makes it react accordingly, however we have it programmed. Mm-hmm. And the other application for that arm is it has a second stick, which has a mind of its own, so it can actually improvise in real time and go in its own rhythmic patterns. We've created a couple other musical robots in the sense, which I talked about a little bit later. But yeah, it actually uses real-time machine learning and throws in its own rhythmic patterns as it sees fit. And so yeah, I've been working with Georgia Tech for about 6 years doing that. And that was one of the last prototype prosthetics we made for the drum arm, is the robotic drum arm, which is why some people may refer to me as the Cyborg Drummer. Right.
Now I remember, and as you mentioned, this was 4 years ago, when you were at my house in Vegas, when Drum Talk TV was based there. I remember you had the one with the two sensors and sticks with you. You also had what I believe was your first prosthetic, where you basically screwed a drumstick onto the end of it. And I remember your hand, but I don't remember if I'm remembering it from video or if you had it with you then. I think you had it. I think you had just gotten the black hand, correct?
The hand. Oh yeah, no, because I remember I flew into town and they had to overnight me a new hand because my hand had broke a few days before. I
Right.
remember. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. Did anyone at Georgia Tech, when you started on this part of your journey, and you told them what you were looking for to create, did at any one time anyone say, "Dude, there's no technology for that. We can't do it," or was it a more of, "Wow, this is a challenge, and we're going to figure out a way to make it happen"?
A little bit of both, obviously. There's always a little bit of both worlds at that. But the majority of the people were enthusiastic about the project for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Especially Gil, the professor. I mean, his profession before was building artificially intelligent musical robots. And so when he heard of my story and I'm reaching out to him, our ideas kind of went hand in hand, pun intended. I needed a robotic limb, and I was a human musician, and he builds artificially intelligent musical robots. And so that was kind of the next step for him and the next step for me. So it was just like a right time, right place. Sure.
That is just fascinating. What a world we live in today, you know?
I know.
Just amazing. I think back to I had a grandfather who lost both his legs from the knee down because he got frozen over while building a railroad, and
Wow.
so he had two back then. All there was two wooden prosthetics made for him, and they weren't the same length. One was longer than the other. And when my mom was a little girl, she used to take care of him and take off his legs and massage it. And he never, ever bitched and complained about this. He just accepted it as, this is something I have, and I'm going to deal with it. And one of the biggest things I admire you for is the fact that you've not only, like you said, life goes on at the beginning of the interview, but the fact that, you take the time and you work with other people and you inspire them, and you like role model isn't even enough, but we'll use that. You've been just such a wonderful role model, and not just to those who have lost limbs, but anybody. I mean, the things that people complain about having a bad day, it's like, come on, you go home to your $600,000 home, and your 3 cars, 2 dogs, wife, and 3, and then there's other stuff that people are not having a great day about that are a bit more serious. But no matter where they are on that scale, with what you've been through, it's just so inspirational. And thanks for having such a positive attitude. It's great.
Well, thank you and other people like you and fans, because that's the main reason why I've carried on the way I have. Everybody bitching about their life for what it is. It's all relevant. It's all
Right.
about how you used to growing up and what you're used to. All
Right.
the things are relevant.
Yeah.
Having a full body or able-bodied limbs and full limbs is something that we're all used to, and so obviously that's something that someone would be depressed about. But you'd be surprised how strong the human psyche is in the long run. And at first it was it was really hard, but it wasn't maybe a year and a half after my accident that I was playing in Russia all of a sudden with the robotic drum arm and stuff, and I'll never forget this until the day I die. But it was my first overseas gig ever, Russia, huge, and this kid comes up to me randomly, like out of nowhere, and basically tells me that he's been watching my videos for the last year on YouTube, following me, and he's a huge fan, and I've given him a reason to live and keep pushing
Wow.
on in life. And again, till the day I die, I will never forget that moment in my life.
Yeah.
People like him are one of the biggest reasons why I've never stopped trying to do what I do, because if I can, I call it little, just because I've been through some things in life, and I've seen other people go through quite a bit of things in life. So I call it a little setback. But when I can go through something like that and give somebody else, the positivity and the outlook to continue with life and to be positive about life, then that's all it takes for me. You know what I mean? I love music, and if I can help promote you to go in that direction, then by all means.
That's very cool. We're going to look at the comments in a moment, see who has questions, see where people are watching from. So people, get your questions ready. The question I have to kind of start that off is, I remember the pictures of you lying in bed at the hospital shortly after the accident. You were pretty scorched up, and you talk about the depression and the state of mind and all that. Can you remember what was the tipping point that got you beyond that to say, okay, I'm moving forward now?
Basically, the tipping point was so I lost my house. Can you hear me? Just fine?
Yeah.
Yeah. I lost my house, and I ended up I couldn't pay my bills anymore, and so I ended up moving back in with my mom. And I was in the hospital for a little over a month, and then released. And I was at my mom's, and it just got to a point where I was just kind of tired, sick and tired of being bored and recovering and just feeling down about life, I guess, if you will, because it went from being like, my daily activities were working, go home, play music. I was fairly busy to leave your house, move back in with your mom, and sit there and do nothing.
Right.
And it was devastating. And so I got tired of it, and I drove, there was there time. So I took the drum kit out, and I set it up on the porch, and I taped the drumstick to my stump, bloody stump, and I proceeded to start playing, and that was kind of the turning point for me.
Wow.
It was kind of let me know, like, this is still possible. You can still do that. And so, yeah, I mean, that was it.
That's awesome. Let me look at the comments for a moment. Let's see who might have questions. I know that people are watching from, Jimmy Keegan is on board, formerly of Spock's Beard, currently with some other great projects. Ashish is watching from Nepal. Michael St. John of drumline.net. If he ever asks you for an interview, say F no, bro. No, what? Definitely interview. Yeah, did you lose me?
Yeah, I can't hear you. One second.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, cool. So, Jimmy Keegan. Okay, Jimmy Keegan's watching, a great friend of mine, great friend of the show, former drummer of Spock's Beard, great drummer, great clinician. Mo Clark of the drum corps world is watching. Thanks, Mo. Ashish from Nepal. Michael St. John from drumline.net is watching. If he asks you for an interview, say, no, I'm kidding. Definitely do an interview with Michael St. John. Got you there, Michael. Let's see, who else? Might have a Kim Ryder. How you doing? Zarla McAlpine, all the way from Scotland.
Send me a screenshot.
Oh, okay, cool.
Send me a screenshot of some of these comments afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. Gil, can you take some screenshots, please, as we go, that show the comments and then send them to me? So Gilbert's going to be on that.
Yeah, anybody watching too, like if you guys like want to look me up on Facebook or whatever, feel free and ask me whatever questions you want. I may be a little late to reply, but I'm definitely down to answer questions.
Yeah, very cool. And you'll also be able to see the interview as soon as we're done. It archives to our Facebook page right away. So if you, in case people add comments like in the next few days, because we share this around about 100 different groups on Facebook, so it'll snowball a bit, I'm sure. So Gil, you notify me if you see questions. Oh, here's one. Ashish is asking, what's your favorite drum fill? Do you have a favorite drum fill that's either yours or from one of your musical idols from a particular song or record that you admire?
I don't. Oh man, a favorite drum fill. I don't necessarily have a favorite. I switch up. I'm so ADD when it comes to stuff like that. And
yeah.
We get something different. If I had to pick something favorite, mainly because it's really easy and you can go to it when all else fails, is doing like quad fills between like the kick and the toms. Just because like you can blow anyone's mind with that, and it's very easy if you have a little bit of practice and it looks complicated when in reality it's not.
It does. It looks and sounds complicated.
Yeah, it's my go-to if I had to pick one, but I mean the list goes on. I couldn't pick, a favorite drummer, a favorite drum group, a favorite drum fill. I'm so ADD. The next day it's like
I'm on to something else. Screw Oreos. I'm on the oatmeal now. So on that note, and I'll look for more questions, people. So keep them coming. On that note, who are some of your, well, other than me, of course, who are some of your influences on the drums?
Big Daddy Dan Shinder is definitely number one.
Awesome.
Love you, dude.
Love you too, bro.
More recently, man, like, I'm into a lot of, like, progressive metal stuff, so, like, obviously, like, Toes and Nabachi, Animals as Leaders, that kind of level of people. But Luke Holland is a young kid. He's one of my favorites. He does a lot of versatile stuff. I mean, he plays a lot of like different hip hop stuff. He'll do dubstep covers,
Yeah.
metal covers. Yeah, he's an awesome, phenomenal young drummer. Matt Garska is another one. And then some of the older people, obviously like Neil Peart.
Yep.
Yeah, Marco Miniman. Like I said, picking a favorite drummer is like kind of a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the influences. A lot of the OG guys, and then as far as the new guys go, I really love some of the dudes in the prog scene.
Me too. And as far as new guys, you mentioned Luke Holland. I spent some time with Luke in Singapore a couple months ago, and we filmed a documentary there at the Singapore Drum Fest. So look for that to come out. Great example of linear playing, which is difficult for me to do because as a drummer who's been playing 48 years, I've been doing the exact opposite of linear playing. So it's hard for me to get my body to do what my brain is thinking. And you mentioned progressive metal. My new favorite band, as far as new bands, new to me, and they've only got 5 albums out, the new Haken album that came out in October is just mind-blowing. Are you familiar with Haken?
How do you spell it?
It's Haken.
Yeah. I was wondering if you're saying Haken or Aiken, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Raymond Hearn is one of my favorite new drummers. Again, new to me. They've been out for 7 years. They got 5 albums out, and this album that just came out in October is just mind-blowing. It makes me want to really practice some new stuff. I'm one of those idiots that's been playing the same stuff for 40 years. I'm really good at it, but I've been playing the same stuff for 40 years, and he's really inspired me to learn some new music. I just love their stuff.
Yeah, I haven't heard the new album. I have to check it out for sure.
Yeah, definitely check it out. I'll send you a link to it. It's one of those things that's in my high rotation right now. When I'm working and I don't need my ears for my work, so if I'm not editing video or something like that or reviewing stuff, I always have something playing. I've listened to this like every day for the last 3 weeks since I discovered it. And it's just great. It's a killer example of progressive metal. Yeah, it's really good. Let me look at let's see who's hey, Donald Witter's watching, one of my business partners for Wicked Chops. James Warda, Kevin Lauder from, I'm not sure. Oh, I see, Naperino. Howdy, Naperino. In Phoenix, that's right. Kevin, we got to get together. I'm only about 100 miles from you. People are commenting, what an inspiration. Awesome. Let us know, folks, if you have more questions. Do not be shy. In fact, let's play some more of your clip for those who are joining us late can get familiar with you actually playing at the kit, and then we'll be right back to you, okay? Here we go. Gil, can you mute your mic? I love, let me set it back and we'll play it one more time towards the end, but I love you mixing in the bell with that. The way you have it placed, it's just real easy for you to kind of work into just about anything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So, did you take drum lessons or are you self-taught?
No, so I mean, I was self-taught up until the point I went to Atlanta Institute of Music.
Right.
And so, yeah, the inspiration, I thought about going to school there, and I kind of put in an interview and never really did too much with it. And then shortly thereafter is when my accident happened and I got electrocuted, and that was kind of my push and inspiration to, maybe I should still try and go to drum school and do something with it. So, no, I was self-taught for a few years. And then I realized how bad I was once I got into school.
Oh, wow. Is it because there was just so much more information that opened up that you realized you had not been familiar with and not tapping into?
Yeah, a ton of stuff. I mean, technique is one of the biggest things that a lot of people don't really get into. You put 2 sticks in their hands and they can play a beat. That's kind of all that matters. And that's all that mattered to me. I played in bands and and I could keep a groove, and that's what matters to me at the time. And so you think you're good, and then I get to school, and they're like, all right, well, how many rudiments do you know? And like, how is your technique doing? And like, why are you starting fills like this way? There's so many things you get into a bad habit as a self-taught musician sometimes.
Right.
And that was one of them. And then just the basics, going back to the basics, actually realizing how much I didn't know. What was a big eye-opener there, and just going back and practicing that stuff was definitely phenomenal.
When they were asking you those questions, were you like sitting under a hot lamp, or were they like yelling at you?
In school, yeah, no, it was kind of like a hot lamp. I mean, of course, you're in a school full of like drummers. I mean, of course, it's kind of intimidating. One, you're there with a bunch of musicians, and then on top of it, you're there with a bunch of drummers and like-minded drummers on top of it. It's completely different than just playing a show for the everyday person versus a musician or a musician who's trying to go to school to be a professional musician.
Right, and there's always someone there that's 20 times better than you that thinks of themselves at your level because they're there to learn. So there's that.
Exactly.
Cool. So you mentioned earlier on that there's more news coming as far as the developments with Georgia Tech. Can you talk some more about that?
Yeah, so again, in the past, the first drum arm, for anyone who's familiar with it, works off EMG, which again is like essentially a more advanced version of a piezo trigger or a drum trigger, and it just picks up electrical signals from the muscle. So if you were to put this on your forearm muscle, say when you flex the muscle, you only get a 0 to 100% electrical signal, and then that signal changes tremendously depending on the user, depending on the stress of the user, the environment, et cetera, et cetera. What all is going on can change all of that. And so it doesn't really allow for precise individual finger control, like, for instance, to type on a keyboard or play the piano or use your fingers to bounce the drumstick for proper technique, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
So, sorry, something on there. So with ultrasound, we use ultrasound sensors to essentially replace the EMG. Ultrasound, as you know, most people are familiar with it because you can see babies inside of people.
Right.
And so, yeah, it produces an extremely accurate image of what's going on internally. And so if you put an ultrasound sensor on my residual limb, whenever I say flex my pinky or my thumb, the signal or the image is completely different versus if it was just an EMG sensor, it would be an electrical signal. And so all of that, again, can change, like I was saying, the stress, the environment, et cetera, et cetera. But ultrasound, you can see an image. And so we actually started using ultrasound sensors and developed our own 3D printed hand. And we've allowed for individual finger control. And so I can play the piano, chords, et cetera.
Wow.
The latency is still there because, again, this is the first prototype of its kind. The latency is there. It's about a second to a second and a half worth of latency after I actually send the signal to the time that it operates. But the hand is about 99% accurate as far as what I wanted to do. So completely incredible. I can send you a link when we get off here if you want.
Yeah.
For one of the most recent videos of us trying it out. But
we'll put that in the comments. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, the original goal for that one was to be able to play piano. But once we started getting into it, our original project was the drum arm. And so I'm thinking to myself, well, I still need all of my fingers to play the drums. People still have in their head that it's all arms. And,
right.
And there's no wrist and fingers when that's in reality
what makes it work.
Yeah, and so I'm like, if I can play piano with this 3D printed hand and an ultrasound sensor, what's stopping us from actually putting the same technology in the drum arm and allowing for even better control?
Right.
Quad strokes even.
Yeah. That is awesome.
That's not humanly possible, hopefully.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. It really is. Like I said, if you do make it to the NAMM show, I'd love to get together with you. Maybe by then you'll have something more to demonstrate than we've seen before. But even just to have you there in person and see you again would be great.
I'll make it a point to come out and see you, man.
That would be great. And folks, if you're going to the NAMM show, we're going to be at our own booth. The Drum Talk TV booth is 6732, and it's just a couple rows behind Remo and Sabian, so it's over in that area. If you're not going to the NAMM show, No, actually, if you're not going to the NAMM show, we are live streaming every interview that we do. And there's going to be 4 correspondents besides myself. So you won't be stuck with just me. You'll be stuck with you'll be able to enjoy 4 other people. And we're going to be bringing interviews to you in Spanish as well. So be sure to follow us the 24th, 25th, 26th, and 27th of January at the NAMM show. Let me cruise through the comments again really quickly to see if we got kind of a shy audience today. That's kind of weird. But I'm going to give some hellos, even though they haven't commented. And hi, Ted Williams. Thank you. He says, that's amazing. John Lynn, Rebecca Johnson, thanks for joining us. Very cool. We appreciate everybody following us. I have a Jason Barnes fun fact question, okay? When you're not playing music, when you're not listening to music, when you're not creating music, what else do you like to do when you're not being the music guy or on tour inspiring people to survive what you've survived mentally and emotionally?
Well, working up at Georgia Tech, and then on top of that, I'm actually still involved in music, but I go to school at a school in Los Angeles called Icon Collective.
Oh.
Taking classes on Ableton and electronic music production and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Still music related, but that's what I do on my other time when I'm not playing drums. And then my off time, man, I skate, and I love to walk my dogs through nature parks and down by the river. But that's pretty much it for me, man. I got to spend some time to get level headed and level out. And then
that's right.
Make music and perfect my crafts.
That's right. What kind of dogs do you have?
I have a German Shepherd. I have a Husky, and then I have a Pit Bull German Shepherd.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. We're looking to get a breed that's called a Laika, a Siberian Laika. It's like a Husky, but much bigger. I used to have a North American Gray Wolf, actually, growing up.
Are they hybrids?
The Laika, I think it is, because it looks
that's what the Laika, the name comes from.
Yeah, it looks a lot like my wolf that I had, which was from 1978 is when I got it, 79, and so I was 16, and he lived until I was like 28, something like that. So this is eons ago, but the Laika looks a lot like that. Hey, show everyone your hand real quick.
So this is my everyday hand. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Yeah, that's the robotic hand he was talking about.
Spins all the way around in a circle.
Wow.
This just works essentially like EMG does. So when I close the hand, it closes, and you can change the modes. And then when I open the hand, it opens. And the same with the wrist. And so the drum arm essentially works the same way, but this hand has 5 motors in it. The drum arm has 1 motor in it, essentially just to actuate up and down motions.
You do not want to be in karate class with this dude.
Walking Dead to shame.
Very cool. Hey, before we come back and say goodbye, I want to play your clip one more time, simply because people come and go during these live things. So here again is Jason Barnes playing with one of his prosthetics. Awesome. I hear some Ginger Baker in some of your playing. You get into some real sort of Ginger Baker tribal-ish beats. You know, he studied in Africa for a very long time, lived there for quite a while, and really immersed himself into the patterns and everything that go with different styles of African drumming. So very cool. Hey, hang on the line after we say goodbye to the audience, because Enja, my wife, wants to come in and say hello.
Sure, yeah, no problem.
All right, cool. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. Thanks for following what we do here on Drum Talk TV. And Jason, again, thank you so much for taking time this late where you are to sit, talk with us, share your story. We look forward to seeing you at the NAMM show. And folks, more to come. Let's see, are there any more interviews this month? Off the top of my head, I'm not even sure. Oh, I have something in the works. that we will announce really soon. Other than that, happy holidays, everyone. If you're watching this at any other time after January gets going, hope you had wonderful holidays. And if you're watching this next fall, I hope your summer was wonderful. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, guys.